Excellent. All right, well, thank you everyone for being here today. Thank you for having me. It's really exciting to be a part of this event. I do want to preface that I do a ton of public speaking, but I almost always have my computer in front of me and my notes in front of me. So if, hey, already fucked up. Which button do I press? And I always have my own clicker. So there might be some fuck ups in this situation here. All right, I think it's this button.
Yes, this
there we
button.
go. I figured it out, guys. All right, so if I have many more of these fuck-ups moving forward, I apologize. I'm also pretty animated, so just let me know if you can't hear me, all right? Awesome, so let's jump in. So my name is Houry Gebeshian, and I am the first female gymnast to represent the Republic of Armenia at the Olympic Games. Thank you. Thank you very much. And at those Olympic Games, maybe, no? Oh, there should be a video there. Is where I invented my gymnastics element, which is now named after me, the Gebeshian. It's on the bars, it's pretty cool. I push off a low bar, I do a full twist, and I catch the high bar. Now it is working. And so you'll see it, it's right here at the beginning. It's pretty cool. There it is.
Wow.
It'll play in slow-mo, so you can see like the weird faces I make mid-motion. But anyway, so that's my move, named after me. On my spare time here, I do motivational speaking, but to pay the bills, I'm a surgical physician assistant. I deliver babies for a living, and I am a small business owner. So I do all of these things. I have a couple of successful stories, but none of them came easy, and they definitely didn't happen overnight. Most of the time was spent kind of falling on my face or pulling out my hair because things just weren't going the way that I wanted to. And that's why almost always you will see me with a headband on nowadays. But in all reality here, how did I go from being this cute little sweet innocent girl to this, I like to think, mature Olympian here talking in front of you guys? The short of it is, through a ton of failures, a ton of fuck-ups, a ton of falling on my face, to finally figuring out, who am I and what am I doing here? So I am a first-generation Armenian American, but I wouldn't say that I grew up in a very Armenian household, nor did I have very many Armenian friends. I went to American school, public American school, where I stuck out like a sore thumb. I had that crazy Armenian hair, I had the dark features. I just didn't really fit in, and I couldn't figure out, was I one of them? Was I one of us? I didn't know, and I had this like identity crisis. But what I did know was that I was good at gymnastics, so that's working in my favor. And for me, I was pretty successful during high school and college, so a family friend of mine that worked for the Armenian Olympic Committee requested that I start competing for Armenia. So way back in 2008, the International Olympic Committee requested for Armenia to get more women and girls to compete for Armenia. Because as we all know, we have really strong weightlifters and wrestlers and boxers that are all men, of course, and they didn't have any women. And so instead of, like the International Olympic Committee wanted them to do, instead of like building a program and encouraging, girls and women to be in sport, they just found somebody and to do it for them. So I was tasked to compete and qualify for the 2012 Olympic Games. And so basically I was to represent a nation I didn't live in, I didn't really know anything about, I didn't identify with, I didn't speak the language of, and I really had no idea what I was walking into. But I was about 20 years old, and I said, you know what, fuck it. Why don't I just try, see what happens, and hopefully it will work out. Well, this was my welcoming committee to the first gymnastics competition I went to. This woman right here, super happy to see me. She was tasked to be my gymnastics coach for the 2 weeks that I was there. So, what nice warm welcome for me. Little did they know, though, I had broken my foot a couple of weeks prior to this competition. And I knew in the back of my mind I wasn't going to be able to compete to the best of my ability, but I also knew that like the weight of the nation was on my shoulders and I must compete and I must qualify to the 2012 Olympic Games. Well, spoiler alert, I didn't. I didn't qualify, and I competed terribly. I had like the worst competition of my life. I think I was like one of the last people in the rankings. It was horrible, and I completely humiliated myself. The Armenian Gymnastics Federation wasn't happy to meet me in the first place, and now they definitely were not happy with me, and I was devastated. You know, I created this whole dream of mine that, oh, I'm gonna become an Olympian, it's gonna be amazing. Well, that didn't happen, and everybody was mad at me. So what did I do? I did probably what most of you guys would have done. I quit. I left the sport. I didn't want anything to do with it. And I kind of curled myself up in this ball and didn't want to expose myself to anything else that would humiliate me in front of anybody, whether it's my family, whether it's the nation of Armenia, whether it's the gymnastics community. It was a total humiliation. So I left. I left the sport. And I did what most people in the United States do when they're not quite sure what they want to do, but they need like something safe to do and something where they'll feel like they're moving forward in their lives. I went to school. I went to medical school, which was safe and secure, and I felt good about it. But during my time there, I met my now fiance, who encouraged me to return back to gymnastics. And I gave him every excuse in the book as to why I couldn't. I couldn't because I was too old. At that point, I was about 25, which was like elderly in gymnastics years. I was 20 pounds heavier than I was when I was competing, which is a lot when you're trying to like flip yourself over yourself. And literally the excuses went on and on and on. And the more I talked to him, the more I kind of realized those excuses are ridiculous. Like, what are you thinking? Like, this is such a great opportunity. Why are you wasting your time? So I decided from that day forward, I'm going to completely change my mentality. I'm going to stop making these excuses. And I am going to compete for the 2016 Olympic Games. And you know, I called up the Armenian Gymnastics Federation and I said, hey, you know what, I'm back. How do you feel about me competing for you guys again? And they were like, are you sure about that? I said, well, yeah, I am. And they said, okay, well, good luck. And I was like, okay, what does that mean? So I basically was on my own. I didn't have a gym, I didn't have a job, I didn't have a coach, I didn't really have anything, I didn't know where to start or what to do. But I sat down and I made a plan because that's what I wanted to do. I made it like all of my training plans. I figured out what routines I needed to do. I made a special diet and all of my strength and conditioning to get me from being the nobody that I was to becoming the Olympian that I wanted to be. And I was the only elite gymnast that you will find that worked full-time as a physician assistant to fund myself for the Olympic Games, as well as trained by myself day in, day out, and coached myself to the Olympics. But there really wasn't any prouder moment for me than when I stepped out onto that competition floor in literally this largest sporting event in the world, wearing our flag on my shoulder and wearing Mount Ararat on my chest. But those 2 years were some of the most difficult, but definitely the most rewarding years of my life. Through all of that experience, I realized and I finally had the identity that I was looking for, the purpose that I was looking for, and I finally felt accomplished. But what was most important was that I am an Armenian woman, and it was because of my Armenian bloodline that I had those opportunities. And my goal and my dream is to break down those societal barriers that women in Armenia have, or in general are put on them, that say that they can't or they won't or they shouldn't, because they can. And I want more women and more girls to have those opportunities that I had, especially through sport. So that's what I'm doing here today. And here in Armenia, I am networking with as many people as I possibly can. I'm literally not sleeping and talking to everybody I possibly can to share my story and to share my dream and my goals. My goals are to generally just encourage healthy living through sport and exercise for the general population here in Armenia. To encourage equal rights for girls and women, as well as what was supposed to happen way back in 2008, encourage the growth and development of a prosperous women's gymnastics team here in Armenia. And all of it seems like a lot. Seems like a lot for a little person like me to do, but it is possible because I'm willing to get outside of my comfort zone, to make myself uncomfortable, and then that is what is needed to make those improvements. So this is cute little me. I grew up with this identity of not really knowing, who I am and what I'm doing, and thinking, I can't, I shouldn't, I wouldn't, because I was a woman, because I wasn't a quote-unquote true Armenian, all these stupid excuses. What I want you guys to think about is, think of when you were just this cute little kid like I was. Way back when we had these big dreams that didn't have any negativity. It didn't have society telling us we couldn't. It didn't have any of these expectations of what should and shouldn't. I want you guys to think back right now to whatever that dream was from when you were a kid. Take that dream and run with it. Run with it, see where it goes, see where it will take you, because it is possible, especially if we make it happen together. It is never too late to deliver your dreams. So, thank you, everyone. That's it.
Do you have questions?
Can I? Sure. I, as a future physician, want to ask you what fuck-ups did you have in this sphere? Because to say the truth, I'm really afraid of these fuck-ups.
Yeah.
But to ask you, how did you overcome these fuck-ups in medicine?
Yeah. Well, you are going to make mistakes. I mean, everybody makes mistakes, so that's just part of life. The way I approached my medical training was to make as many mistakes as I possibly could, as many fuck-ups as I could when I was a student. Because then I wasn't the one that was at fault, right? I was learning. I had I'm just learning here. But I still make mistakes all the time, and as long as you, own those mistakes, and especially in medicine, fix those mistakes as soon as possible, that's kind of how I approach it. The biggest thing, especially where I work, and most places where you're in a healthcare system, you have a team. And so being willing to ask questions, especially when you're uncomfortable, when you know that something isn't right, or you're afraid that you're going to make a mistake, make the mistake, or ask somebody, hey, you know what, I'm doing this for the first time, I need some help, whatever it is. Those are the two things I would say in approaching your medical career. You're going to make mistakes, don't be afraid of doing it. Just own them and ask for help, for sure. Does that help?
I have maybe a very stupid question, but I have a question. After hearing your speech, in my mind rise the following question. How long is your day? Is it 24 hours?
Yes, it is.
Are you sure?
It is, yes. No, I'm here for 4 weeks, and I was actually just talking to my friend here, which I said I didn't have very many Armenian friends growing up, but throwing a curveball into this whole day, one of my friends from when I was itty bitty is actually here in the crowd. Johnny, shout out to you. But anyway, I am here just trying to work my ass off. That's how I approach every single day, but I only have 24 hours in my day, just like everyone else.
Bravo, thank you.
I'll say that.
Thank you.
Alright, so the mentality of which you've been able to amazingly overcome every odd that was thrown, I think when you say that you want people to go after their dreams, a lot of people might say, you know, to do a full-time job and design everything that I want to do, it sounds very overwhelming. Is there any way that you could break that down?
Yeah, so I mean, if you think back to my story, I mean, I didn't have a job, I didn't have, you know, any plan, I had no idea where I was going to go, and I literally wrote it all down. I think that's like the best way to do it. Figure out what all those things are that you need to do. You know, I need to find a job. I need to do whatever those dreams are, break it down. Break it down. For me, I write everything out, you know. I make like a huge little map of where I'm going to go. But start small. Start small with one thing. Here are all my dreams. Here's how I'm going to do them. I'm going to start here. And then once you accomplish that nice big check mark, you move on to the next one. And then you accomplish everything that you want to do. Yeah.